Here's something I genuinely believe most people in this space are gonna push back on hard. The avoidant person in your life is not incapable of commitment. They're already committed, just not to you. Not yet. And not because of anything you did wrong or anything you failed to be, but because of one specific thing you almost certainly don't have yet. And nobody, like almost nobody, ever actually tells you what that thing is. I want to sit with that for a second before I keep going. Because I know what you've been doing. You've been reading every article, watching every video, trying to understand the withdrawal and the hot and cold and the pulling away and the sudden warmth that disappears before you can even hold on to it. And somewhere underneath all of that research, underneath all of that trying, there's a question you're scared to say out loud. Not, why won't they commit? The real question. The one keeping you up at night. Am I the person they'll choose? And I want to tell you, honestly, gently, that you're asking the wrong question. Because the answer has almost nothing to do with you, and everything to do with a condition. A very specific interior condition inside the avoidant person that almost nobody talks about. And when you finally understand what it is, everything you thought you knew about this person just shifts. Let me tell you what I actually see when I look at avoidant attachment from the inside. People with an avoidant attachment style have usually learned somewhere in their history that their needs for closeness weren't met, or that closeness itself got associated with pain. And so, their nervous system did what any nervous system does when it learns something hurts. It adapted. It built a system, a highly efficient, almost invisible system for protecting itself from ever feeling that again. Their whole strategy is basically to turn off the attachment system entirely, to prevent feelings of vulnerability, rejection, disappointment. And attachment researchers have found that people deactivate this system when seeking closeness feels dangerous. Here's what that looks like in practice. When you get close, when you become real to them, when you start to matter, their body sends an alarm. Not a thought, not a choice, an alarm. A biological signal that says danger. Pull back. Protect yourself. They might look completely calm on the outside, unbothered. And underneath, their entire nervous system is in quiet emergency. Increased heart rate, distress they're not showing you, not even fully showing themselves. Think about that for a second. The person you love isn't cold. They're overwhelmed. And they have no language for it. None. Now, I need you to hear this next part, because this is the part that actually changes everything. Avoidant people, both fearful and dismissive, do commit. They marry, they build families, they stay. It's not that they're incapable of it. They just have their own pace, and what commitment means to them feels different than it might to you. Did you catch that? They do commit. They always could. So the question was never, can they? The question is when, and to whom, and under what specific conditions. And this is where most people get it completely wrong. Most people assume if they could just be patient enough, or loving enough, or understanding enough, eventually the avoidant person will soften and choose them. And sometimes that's true. But more often what actually happens is something more complicated and way more uncomfortable to sit with. Here's the thing about those early months. There's this engine running, novelty, dopamine, that first 5 to 7 months, where everything feels fresh and easy and there are no major disagreements. You're new. You're exciting. You're not yet asking for anything that costs them the one thing they will not give up, their independence. People with this style often genuinely worry about losing their freedom. Commitment doesn't just feel scary. It can feel like being controlled, like being stuck. And that's a massive turnoff for them. So you get months of warmth, months of closeness, months that feel like this is real, and then life starts showing up. You have a hard week. You need something from them. You express a need that is completely normal and completely reasonable, and they go quiet, pull back, create distance where there wasn't any, because the avoidant person isn't bonded. Through the same neurochemical attachment process, they start feeling rising irritation instead of rising commitment, and you internalize that. Of course you do. You think, What did I do? What's wrong with me? Why is my need so threatening to them? But here's what I keep coming back to. After everything I've watched and learned about this, your need isn't the problem. The size of your need isn't the problem. The problem is that the avoidant person has never truly learned, in their nervous system, not just their head, that someone else's need doesn't mean the end of their freedom. That's the wound. That's the actual thing. This usually comes from early environments where emotional expression got met with criticism or unpredictability or just nothing. So, when they were small, needing something from someone meant one of two things. You got rejected for asking, or you got swallowed by the weight of someone else's emotional world, and their nervous system decided it would never put itself there again. Okay, here's the pivot. Here's what most videos never actually get to. Avoidant people do commit, but they tend to look for very specific things in a partner and a relationship that make them feel safe enough to stay. Not chase, not pursue, not convince, safe enough to remain. There's a difference in those words that matters so much, I need you to really hear it. Consistency is one of the biggest things avoidants look for. Predictability, stability. They need to feel like the relationship isn't going to blow up on them. But, and this is the part nobody finishes the thought on, it has to be consistency from the right person, in the right form. Not the consistency of someone who's always available because they're terrified to lose you. Not someone who makes the avoidant feel like the oxygen in the room. That kind of consistency actually confirms their deepest fear. That closeness means being consumed. The person an avoidant commits to is someone who's consistent without being desperate, present without being all-consuming, someone who genuinely, not as a strategy, not as a tactic, has their own life. I'm not saying that to hurt you. I'm saying it because I think this is where so many people who love avoidant partners quietly miss the mark. They give everything. They make themselves completely available. They clear their schedule, their emotional bandwidth, their sense of self. And they think, surely this is what love looks like. Surely this level of devotion will feel safe to them. But it does the opposite. To the avoidant, space is safety. Their nervous system is protecting against the same underlying fear as an anxious person, not being loved safely, but they use a mirror strategy, distance to regulate instead of closeness. So, when you become their entire world, their nervous system reads it as entrapment, not love. Entrapment. The person an avoidant stays with doesn't need them to be everything. Someone who, when the avoidant needs to breathe, actually lets them breathe, without punishing them for it, without sending 17 texts while they're quiet, without reading the distance as abandonment and responding with panic. That's not because they want someone who doesn't care. It's because they need proof, real, lived, repeated proof that intimacy doesn't cost them who they are. And this is the part I want to be really honest with you about. Because there are two very different things that can look exactly the same from the outside. The first one, you genuinely doing your own healing, building your own life, releasing the desperate grip of needing this specific person to choose you, and from that place of real wholeness, offering steady, unclingy love to someone who slowly, carefully starts to trust it. The second one, performing that, pretending to be okay, acting unbothered while secretly counting every hour they don't text you, giving them space as a strategy to make them miss you, while internally, you're white-knuckling through every single day. Avoidant people can't always tell the difference in the first month, maybe not even the second, but over time, they're incredibly attuned to authenticity. They've spent their whole lives being vigilant about whether closeness is safe. They've become expert readers of that invisible tension. They will feel the difference between someone who's genuinely okay and someone who's performing okay. And the moment they feel that performance, the alarm fires again. So let me say the most important thing in this entire video. You cannot become the person an avoidant commits to by trying to become the person an avoidant commits to. You can only get there by doing real work on yourself. For yourself, not for them. Until you genuinely stop needing them to choose you to feel like you're enough. That's not romantic. I know it's not the answer anyone wants, but it's the truth. And I think you need the truth right now more than you need to feel better. When the relationship environment actually feels right, avoidants start moving toward commitment. You see changes. They stop relating from self-protection and start relating from something that looks more like trust. That shift is real. I've seen it. But it doesn't come from pressure. It doesn't come from proving how much you love them over and over. It comes from safety. Sustained, genuine, unhurried safety. The kind that only exists when the person offering it isn't quietly drowning in need while pretending to be fine. And here's the hardest truth. Sometimes you do everything right. You heal. You become genuinely whole. You offer exactly the kind of grounded, warm, non-desperate presence that creates safety for an avoidant nervous system. And they still don't commit because they're not ready, because their wound is still too loud, because doing their own inner work isn't something they've chosen yet. If an avoidant is genuinely willing to work on their attachment issues, actually willing, not just saying it, they're more likely to commit because they've started addressing what was blocking them. The operative word is willing. Their willingness, not yours. Research from the University of Michigan found that most avoidant people in relationships are less happy, and that avoiding emotional needs for extended periods is actually harmful to their mental health. They're not invincible behind those walls. The walls are costing them something too. But that cost is theirs to recognize, theirs to act on, theirs to heal. Your job, your only actual job, is to be honest with yourself about what you can offer this person without losing yourself in the offering, and to know clearly where your line is. The line past which staying becomes self-abandonment. Because there's a version of loving an avoidant person that's generous and patient and grounded and real, and there's a version that's just fear dressed up as devotion. Only you know which one you're living in right now. I want you to sit with that tonight, not with shame, with honesty, because you deserve to love someone who's also willing to do the work of being loved. And you deserve to know, clearly, without ambiguity, whether the person in front of you is moving toward that or not. The specific person an avoidant commits to isn't the most loving person they've ever met, not the most patient, not the most beautiful or the most understanding. It's the person who was secure enough in themselves that they stopped needing the avoidant to be any particular way, and from that place of genuine freedom, chose to stay anyway. That right there is everything.